Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a great guest on because this guest believes, like many people need to start grasping, is that the role of finance, the office of the CFO, it needs to change, and it is changing. And as his LinkedIn page says, the role revolution will not be televised. So, welcome to the show, Chris Agent.
Thank you very much, Terrell. It's great to get that line in there because it's a great song as well. So you can kick everybody off with this song in their head now. The role revolution will not be televised. But yeah, no, it's good to be here and to talk to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we jump into, your great business, thegenerationscfo.com, tell us a little bit about what was your background before launching Generation CFO?
So I came from the coalface. I was working in finance. I worked up to be a CFO, and I kind of, I felt like I didn't really fit into that industry very well. I was very much business focused, a commercial sort of accountant, and at that time, which we're talking sort of 15, 20 years ago now, it wasn't seen as the sort of business partnering type role as it is today. And I kind of went on a journey. I was a bit frustrated with what we were providing to the business in terms of value. So I moved into big transformation projects with the likes of, Amazon and Vodafone, which is a telecom company over here, and a couple of big players who had deep pockets, which is really helpful when making transformation. And after going on that journey for sort of 10 years, you realize that there's a huge amount of technology out there that can help us, and we're not employing it. So I decided to set up Generation CFO, which was really to try and fill this information gap for people because they simply didn't really know about all this great stuff that's going to change their business.
Awesome, awesome. Now, what was that like? I mean, from introducing people to new tools and new technology, because I remember like when I started studying accounting, maybe like in high school, I learned it from someone who was we were still handwriting on like green ledger paper. And that's kind of how I learned the fundamentals of accounting. And it's
Yeah.
just to see people move to, let's say, a tool like Excel, it was a big jump. And it seems like now we're in kind of that period where, hey, there's another big jump. So what has that experience been like as you introduce people to new tools that can help them?
It's a great question. It's basically it's you get various responses depending on who they are. I used to think it was a generational thing where people who hadn't grown up with technology, or people who can remember the first time they moved into an Excel spreadsheet from paper, they weren't ever going to get it. But I actually now think it's not digital natives versus sort of baby boomers. It's actually more fundamental than that. It's kind of, do you have a growth mindset? Are you able to see the opportunity here? Are you able to change things, be adaptable? And part of the solution for that is obviously looking at technology. So I kind of recognize what's implied in your question there. There's a lot of people who just go, this ain't for me. I can't get my head around closing month end quickly, let alone understanding how machine learning or AI might be able to impact my role. And that's fine. But what I would say is that there's a lot of benefit in using this technology. A lot of it's getting easier to implement. And the research is kind of showing that it's people that are slowing the progress of this now, not the actual technology itself.
Hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, that's one of the things that I think I experienced some when I was working at General Electric, because at the time when I was working there, it was kind of the early stages of piloting finance transformation, where we were standing up a center of excellence team. And one of the big, things that I realized is that there were people, in my age group and that were kind of resistant to it. And like I said, the natural thing is to think, oh, it's a generational thing. But I agree with you. When you start looking deeper, you start realizing like, Nah, it's more fundamental than generational.
Yeah. Because the guys who are funding these massive programs, that I was fortunate to be proud of, but part of, they, they were baby boomers. They were kind of in their 50s, very senior within these organizations, but they understood that, the world had changed. They understood that, the technology had changed, but also their business models had changed. There's this quote that every business now is in some way a technology company. There's also, the huge amount of value in data and all this intangible kind of value in your business now, which is completely different to how it was 30 years ago. So I think it's the people who kind of get closer to the problem and kind of look at it rather than bury their heads in the sand, start to say, right, okay, we can do something here. And I would sum that up as, a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And many entrepreneurs are in that latter, growth mindset. So hopefully they'll be more open to it.
Awesome, awesome. Now, so we're going a little bit further into Generation CFO. So, one of the things I find interesting is, when you come up with an idea, like any entrepreneur comes up with an idea about, hey, this is going to solve a problem that I'm seeing, whether it's in the industry, the market, or whatever. What was that journey like, building up around that, I guess you say that infant of an idea that you had? What was that journey like?
It was scary, I'd say. And look, if I put on my PR hat, I'd say, we were testing and learning, and we were sort of, we knew where we were going. The reality is, though, that we actually, we were just trying stuff out. We were trying to see, what people were interested in. We would make mistakes. We would put on events that didn't go down very well. We would talk about certain subjects that were flat uninteresting to people. And it was only through that sort of, that experience of really talking through, things, you find, the need, you find what you need to do to satisfy people. And for us, I had a light bulb moment when, we did some research and we got some feedback, and people basically said, look, we get our information from two places: our accounting institutions, who aren't set up to understand technology in the digital world. They do great thought leadership there, but it's really not operational.
Gotcha.
Or they go to the vendors and the conferences where they get, marketing hype thrown at them. So the more that we sort of understood this problem, we were like, well, actually, we want to be the impartial people in the middle. We want to be credible as practitioners who have come from finance, and also credible as people who will assess that, from an arm's distance, assess the technology from an arm's distance. And it was only when we kind of realized that over, many months, many months, I would say it was probably 2 years in even getting to the point where we knew what we were starting. It's only then that we felt, right, we know where our value is and we know how we need to build out our product. So, there was no business plan on day one. Let's put it that way.
That's something I always find interesting when talking to different, successful entrepreneurs. And a lot of times, the textbook approach is, you build out this business plan, you have this model, you have all these technical things figured out before you launch, and it's just like somehow there's this smooth line. And when I talk to people, the reality of it is some of them are like, we started testing some things, throwing out some things worked, some things didn't. And it's like this constant stage of evolving over time until you find that sweet spot.
Yeah, it's, it depends who you talk to, right? You can rewrite history if you want to. You can be 3-4 years into your organization and growth, and you can look back and say, well, here's this beautiful journey that we went on. Here's the investments that we made that really converted. But I think any founder, is, if they're honest, will say that they have, gone down many sort of alleys that didn't lead them anywhere, spent a lot of money on the wrong stuff. And you can't be scared of that failure. I don't want to be a cliche about fear of failure and fail fast and all that sort of stuff, but it's relevant. You can't do too much of that because you've got limited funds when you're starting up. So you've got to know your subject. You've got to know where you're going. But I do think that for people to understand what needs to be brought to the market, what problem you're trying to solve, you've got to go down many, you've got to kiss lots of frogs before you get to the prince.
Mhm. Gotcha. Now, so tell us a little bit about, what can people expect as far as like the products, the services, and the events from Generation CFO?
So first and foremost, we're a community, because where our journey started was this LinkedIn group that I set up September 2009, and it's now at 70 odd thousand people. And so first and foremost, we're a community. So what we do is we give content to that community. And because I personally have come from finance and I feel there's a long way to go, all of that content is free. It's like, come onto the website, have a look at the themes that are on there, whether it's data visualization, data analytics, whatever it is, automation. Have a look at the themes that are on there and self-educate. And hopefully with that, you'll start to create a few insights, a few aha moments, and then you'll go on to the research that we provide or the webinars that we provide. And what we're trying to do there is, present the content in a different way, but also start to bring in things like our top 100 technologies. So we talk about all of the, it's a curated list of technologies that apply to our industry. And it's not just the usual suspects, because this market changes all the time. So we try to give a bit of an analyst view on what you should be looking at to really, again, because I think a lot of this stuff can be done for free or low cost. Start a project without getting the consultants in. We're sort of saying, look at the top 100, self-educate. Plus, obviously, we've moved on from the LinkedIn groups, which were great 10 years ago, but not so good now. So we have what we call FiMind, which is a forum on our website, which people can sign up to for free again. And it's basically a very good forum group on our website. And what we do there is we sort of have open discussions about everything relevant in this subject, but we also have private groups for people to join by industry or by stage of their company growth. And we encourage sort of finance leaders to be part of that. And there's some great collaborations, within there. And, finally, it's sort of born out of all of this conversation. We started training people. We started to say that wasn't the intention at the start, I hasten to add. We just realized that there's some real fundamentals that need to be understood before people can even engage with this subject. And we started talking about sort of tools and, big words like machine learning and artificial intelligence, and people didn't quite get it. And we wanted to create that safe space where people could come, ask all these stupid questions, but from an accounting and finance point of view, and learn the foundations. So we now do a foundations training course. We now do a slightly more practical practitioner level training course, which is just setting you up to go and do it yourself within your company. And that whole package, is what we now call generationcfo.com. And the role revolution will not be televised, but we're doing our best to kind of show it through our website.
Awesome. Now, what's the website, and where can they find you online to check you guys out?
So it's generationcfo.com. We're across all social media as well. I must admit, we don't do a huge amount on YouTube, even though we should. But you'll find, a ton of different content on the website. People are very welcome to connect with me directly, whether you're a founder or someone interested in what we do, on LinkedIn. And you'll find me there. I'm pretty prolific on LinkedIn because of the group that I founded 10 years ago. So you won't find it hard to find me.
Awesome, awesome. Now, one of the things that you mentioned that I wanted to ask a little bit more about, that top 100 list in technology,
Hmm.
because I think that that's something that a lot of people who are, even when I think about myself, when working in the field of accounting and finance, sometimes, I mean, you're so tied into your day to day that you don't have time to really look up and take a breath to see, okay, all right, what type of technology can help me. So when they're checking out that list, that top 100 list, what's the value they're going to get out of checking out that list?
So I think there's probably three things that they're going to get from it. First of all, it's a curated list, so they're going to, rather than googling, something, and this list doesn't really exist anywhere else. So rather than trying to Google, I don't know, analytics tools for CFOs, you're going to come up with all sorts of stuff. You're going to cut straight to the chase. You're going to have a sort of curated list. It's also got our opinion on some of these companies, so you'll have our kind of insight into what we think about the company. We're not critiquing it. We're simply saying whether our community has used it or whether there are members who have talked about it positively or not. So you're going to get some sort of peer reference, and again, it's not like Amazon review, but it is sort of more insightful. And I think you're gonna learn about companies that you've never heard of before. So I think a lot of people, you mentioned Excel. I had a classic debate about 2 years ago. Excel is dead? Question mark. And it was I was there basically saying that there's a whole host of tools out there that we should be looking at, and that's why I want people to think of Excel as dead, even though I know it's not going anywhere, because it's the mindset that we need to change. And since then, obviously, Microsoft has been on this amazing journey with Power BI and all the rest, but even that only takes you so far. And I it was only last week in the UK that 16,000 records went missing from our COVID stats. That was
Wow.
because of this Excel environment that people were working in rather than a slightly more robust database. So we just need to be a bit better at sort of thinking outside the box and solutioning, and you'll find different technologies in there to engage with. And it's on us at Gen CFO to sort of bring them to you. So yeah, I think there's definitely value in looking there. And if you look there and you don't like it and you just end up building out your Excel environment, that's fine. But at least be curious.
Nope. No, I think that is a great point, because I think, at some point whether it's your modeling, your analysis, it exceeds the I guess say the limitations that Excel has. I mean, I know a lot of people use it, but Excel does have limitations, and there
Yeah,
are
yeah,
tools out
absolutely.
there that can really help you move things forward. So before we wrap up, one question that I like to ask every guest that comes on is, when you think about, your journey in, building out Generation CFO, and you think about even your experience as a CFO, what's two pieces of advice that you would share with other business owners?
Two pieces of advice. So I think, in terms of a challenge that I think you have when you're starting out and you're growing your own business, is actually building trust. I think, and especially when it's a sort of environment that I'm trying to build in a community and a sort of, a trusted source of information. Trust is really tricky, and it takes a long time for people to kind of get the measure of you as a person. And now we're working remotely, it's even harder, I'd say. um, why do people want to meet Chris Argent? Why do people want to engage with his content? Why do people want to go on to Generation CFO, and when there's other sources out there, or that it's just starting out? So I think trust is one of the hardest things to build, but you have to do it. You have to be credible. You have to go the extra mile for customers. You have to deliver well, and with that will come the trust. Um, So I think there's definitely one challenge that you'd have to overcome. And I think the second thing would be, just from a founder's point of view, is, it's okay to acknowledge the bad days. I think there's a sort of we're not based in America, and a hugely optimistic country in America. We're probably more pragmatists in the UK, but I think it's important to acknowledge that you're going to have bad days in your business, and you don't have to gloss over them. Because if you do, then it starts to grind, and then you start to sort of, create a story that isn't actually your business anymore. It's just the hype. So, be true to yourself, and be true to the story and the journey that you're on. Because it's all too easy to say, hi, how's it going? Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm just about to land a deal, and, we've just landed everything flawlessly, and that's why you want to work with us. But people can see through that. So it's a bit like, just a bit like trust, build your trust, build your company organically, but on these really solid foundations. And then you can scale, because you've kind of earned your foundation, so you can scale quickly after that.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing the wisdom, the tips, and we'll definitely include the link so people can go check out generationcfo.com and really realize, get a front row seat, because the role revolution will not be televised.
I'm going to clip that, and I'm going to put it on my phone. Thank you, Mr. TT. You've got an amazing voice. I'm going to take that one.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.